Welcome. You are listening to Purpose Driven Wealth, the podcast for empowered investors. If you're an investor who is tired of playing the Wall Street casino, stay tuned. On this show, we bring on industry experts to discuss leading strategies to help you make empowered decisions with your hard-earned capital. And now, here is your host, Mo Bina.
Welcome to Purpose Driven Wealth. I'm your host, Mo Bina. Today on the show, we have Dustin Heiner. Dustin is the founder of Master Passive Income, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, and Successfully Unemployed. He's a real estate investor who generated enough passive income from his real estate to quit his full-time job. He's also the author of How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties, which quickly became a bestseller. He now helps other people invest in rental properties to live their dream life. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mo, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I'm a real estate investor. That's literally what I do. I've been investing since 2006. But what I love is not like real estate itself. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But it's what affords me to do in my life, like having financial freedom, literally not working for somebody else. I like calling it successfully unemployed. And, I go to the gym, hang out with my family, drink coffee, and come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Dustin. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Why don't we start off with talking about your background and how you came to get involved in real estate investing?
Oh, yeah, totally. So let me go right to the end, but I'll jump right back to the beginning. So when I was 37 years old, I was blessed to be able to quit my job because I had enough rental properties that made me money every single month. Each one were making me a minimum of $250 a month in passive income. So I'll quickly go back to the beginning. So back in 2006, I was working a dead end. I call it a JOB, a just over broke job. And so I'm working that dead end JOB. At the same time, I was taught from when everybody's really young, we all get taught the same exact thing. You go to school, you get good grades, and then you get good grades and you go to college or university, you get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. And you hopefully get a piece of paper, a degree, they call it, and you go to different companies and you try to get a quote unquote career there. Then you work 40 plus years of your life and then hopefully retire at 65, 70 years old on what you managed to save that entire time working that JOB. So I'm doing that exact same thing. That's literally, I'm following the exact same path. And I had always also been entrepreneurial. That idea of, starting businesses, I like that. And so when I was young, I was like 13 years old, I had my first job. It was almost like a self-proprietor type of thing, but I had a newspaper route. Most people don't know what newspapers are anymore, but I would ride around on my bike with newspapers, that bundle up newspapers and throw them at 5 a.m., banging them on garage doors, waking people up. I had I started a graphic and website design company. I started a skateboard manufacturing business. I even started a pizzeria and a cafeteria, all from the ground up, just because I wanted to be entrepreneurial, but I'm still working that dead end JOB. Now, in the same time, I bought one rental property. And in buying that one rental property, I realized, my goodness, I made so much money without even working. That first paycheck, that first month that I got that paycheck, I remember plain as day, it was like $317. I can remember the check visually in my head. I was like, $317? I didn't do anything. My property did all the work and I made that money. So I knew I needed to become an investor. But Mo, you know how it happens. Life started getting in the way. My job started, taking more time, and my wife and I started having children. And here's what really shoved me, like really changed me to become a real estate investor. So by the time my wife had our fourth child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all that good stuff, and bonds with the baby. And then I go back to work. And in that same week that I go back to work, and this is a county job, like a local government job. I was doing IT for the local county government, the most risk-averse job I could ever think of. So I get back to work. In that same week that I get back to work, I get a call on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? And I said, sure. And I hung up the phone. I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world are they calling me to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. I literally thought that in my brain. And as I'm sitting there, I remember about a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors, maybe some rumblings going on. There could potentially be layoffs in the county. And I shook it off because I said, I've got so much seniority. My boss is saying I do a great job. I work IT, I work for the government. I'm okay. So I get up, shaking that thought off, and I go down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, Mo, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I take, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. And it feels like my feet become lead bricks because the weight of possibly losing my job is starting to crush down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door's closed, and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. She says, kind of sheepishly grinning at me. Uh, she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? And she's trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. So I go and I take my seat and I sit down and I start thinking about my life. I started thinking about, my goodness, this whole thing, this plan that other people told me to do. If I lose my job right now, did I just waste my life doing this? And then I thought, oh my goodness, this is how I make money to feed my family. If I lose my job, does that make me a failure as a husband? Does that make me a failure as a father trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the weight of everything is just crushing down on me. Then the door to my boss's office opens up. Out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you can tell her world has been devastated. She passes by me, and my boss comes out and he says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? Well, then I get up and I go into my boss's office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. So I take this layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down, just getting laid off, and I realize two things. This is the reason why I tell the story. So hopefully you listening, hopefully you're going to grab this story and realize that it can and probably will happen to you. So I take that layoff notice and I realize two things. Well, the first thing is I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county, a different department, wasn't having all the budget issues. So check, got that done. Now, the second thing, sitting in that chair, is that I realized that I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized I am now an investor. I started telling myself that because I knew I needed to be an investor, but life got in the way. Now, with life getting in the way, I realized now this is what can happen. You get laid off, or your ability to take your family's food is taken away from you. So right then and there, I told myself, every time anybody asked me the question, Dustin, what do you do? Because we all get that question. I would usually reply with my job. And instead, I said, from now on, I will tell every single person when they ask me that question, I will say, I am an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, I started buying property after property after property, each one making me a minimum of $250 a month in passive income. Eventually, I had 30 plus properties, and I realized, my goodness, even though I'm making $75,000 a year at this job, I'm losing money working here. So the last part of the story, I went to my new boss, good boss and all, and I gave him a layoff notice. I said, boss, here's your 2 weeks notice. And we laughed, and jokingly, he said, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate. It makes money for me without me even working. So the last part of the story, I walked away from my job the very last time ever. And I've taken this walk 1,000 times. It was a 1.5 mile walk because I was in downtown. I was too frugal to pay for parking. And so with that 1.5 mile walk, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. As opposed to that time where I walked down that short hallway that my feet became like lead bricks, I was walking on clouds because looking back at said, I have now accomplished financial freedom. And now with my properties, I don't work and my properties work for me and I make money. So everybody listening to this, I want you to realize that your value is so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. If you got paid what you're worth, they'd go broke. So now is the time that you need to start having that purpose-driven wealth. You need to start focusing on creating wealth. My suggestion is passive income. Creating passive income, ways that money comes in without you working. But when you have wealth, you are now protected from other people. You're now independent as opposed to dependent. So realize that your value is so much more than anybody could ever pay you. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Oh, that's a great story. And, you know, I love to hear that because basically you're talking about empowerment and the ability now to basically, for lack of a better way of saying it, maybe write your own paycheck, right? It's like you've got passive income coming in, you've got multiple properties that are generating, let's say, like you said, $250 a month. And so there's a sort of empowerment that comes with that, and that feeling of I'm not basically at anyone else's whim, right? That I can control my own destiny.
100%. And the biggest thing for me was, I mean, quitting my job was definitely very important. But what it came down to was when I realized I couldn't feed my family anymore or put a roof over our heads, that was a huge wake up call that something needs to change. And I need to make a change very quick. Now, I could do the same thing and get another job, but here's what I realized. And I didn't realize this until I actually got laid off. It's more risky to work for somebody else than risky being investing in real estate, investing in yourself, doing something on your own. You know, you might lose, let's say worst case scenario, you buy a property, you lose money, you sell it and you get out. Okay, that's a lesson learned. Hopefully you get better than that. But what if you're banking everything on your entire family on your job and then you get laid off? I mean, I found it's so much more risky allowing somebody else to dictate if I can feed my family or not. So for me, once I realized that real estate investing was not risky, in fact, I'll definitely explain how I actually create a business that makes sure I'm making money. Remember, every property, I'm trying to make $250 a month in passive income. And with that, with every single property, like I don't buy a property unless I'm making $250 a month in passive income. With that, once I had 30 plus properties, I was like, man, I don't have to work anymore. But what we do, we take risk out of the equation when you're building a business. I'll give you a quick example of what that would look like. Let's say you're starting a convenience store and you're selling candy bars. If you have a candy bar that you know without a shadow of a doubt you could sell it every day, all day for $1, but it costs you 50 cents to buy that candy bar, then you would sell it and you'd make 50 cents, which would be fantastic. But here's what the beautiful thing about real estate. Let's say you didn't even have the 50 cents to buy that candy bar. It cost you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents in order to buy that candy bar, which is a total of 75 cents, but then you could still sell it for $1. Well, then you'd make 25 cents for every single candy bar with you not even using your own money. That's the same thing in real estate investing. When we buy the property right, we know we have a business that runs itself, and I'll tell you how to have the business run itself. But then you have profit every single month coming in. Like you would not buy a candy bar for $1.25 and sell it for $1. You'd lose 25 cents every single time. Why would you start a business like that? Same thing with real estate investing. We take the risk out of the equation by building a business so that that business now owns that property, and that property is now making us money every single month. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love for you to kind of maybe walk through a little bit about the strategy or the path that you took to kind of build up to 30 properties, because people could easily say, oh yeah, well, $250 a month, yeah, that's great, but how can I live off of that, right? So how do you create the ability or that journey that you went through to kind of scale to that point? And I'm sure like the listeners are probably wondering how you got to that point of 30 properties, and how long did it take you to get there?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with how long it take. It took me about 6 years before I had enough properties with that rent coming in that made me enough money to quit my job or to cover my expenses. But remember, $250 is the minimum. I have properties now. Started investing back in 2006, 2007, before the crash. And with the crash, I still made money whether the market went up, the market went down, or the market went sideways because I invested for cash flow, passive income every single month. Now, if you bought a property that made you $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year. That's a great amount of income coming in. But let's say, and for what I did was I scaled my business, and I'll tell you how to scale it as well. If you bought 10 properties, like I asked my wife, how much money do we need to cover our expenses? And she said, I remember the number, $4,200, like, mortgage and food and insurance, all that stuff. And I said, okay, well, it's just simple math, like literally simple math. One property, $250 a month is $3,000 a year. 10 properties is $2,500 a month. That's $30,000 a year in passive income without working. 20 properties is $5,000 a year, $60,000. $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year without even working. I realized I just got to scale it up. Now, that's the beauty of scaling the business. Now, how do you scale the business? It's actually, let me share with you how I got started And I'll tell you the wrong way because I listen to other people. They told me the wrong way, but now I'm an investor. I figured out the right way. So in 2006, I was watching one of those late night infomercials. There's a real estate quote unquote guru came on and said, "We're coming to your town. There's a free 2-hour seminar. We're going to teach you how to invest in real estate." I was like, "Yay, that's great." I went to that 2-hour seminar. It was horrible. It was literally all sales pitch and hype. Then they say, "Run to the back. It's normally $50,000, but it's $1,000 today. Sign up for this 2-day seminar." I was like, "Okay." I ran to the back and I did that exact same thing and spent $1,000. Then I went to that 2-day seminar. Horrible. They gave us a tad, like little nuggets here and there, but it was all hype and sales pitch for $80,000 courses, $100,000 courses. I mean, it was just all a sales pitch the entire time. But I realized that this real estate investing thing is possible. So what I did was I took what little they told me and I implemented. Here's what they tell you, and this is what I did. And my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. Then I figured out the right way and then scaled the business. So I'll tell you the wrong way, and I want you to quickly forget it because it's going to be really quick. It's super simple. If you heard any quote unquote guru, they'll tell you this. Okay, this is what you do. You find an area of the country anywhere and you find a property. And then once you find the property, you run the numbers, which means you make sure that you're covering your expenses. They say, make sure you're making 50 or 25 or $50 a month in passive income, but you're banking on appreciation. You'll love appreciation. Remember, this is 2006. And so it was going up. And so I did that and I followed that. Then they say, what you want to do is buy the property, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, then spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, then find a tenant, and then find a property manager. Well, in my opinion, that's just about backwards. I did that exact same thing, and my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. And I also coach lots of students now how to do it the right way. I get lots of students say, "Dustin, I went and I did everything, and then I tried to find a property manager, and I called around. The property manager would tell me, 'No, I will not manage that property because I'll get shot there if I go there.'" Well, that's sad. You now no longer have an asset that makes you money. You now have a liability that you have to manage yourself. How much better if you had somebody else? So that's the wrong way. Let me give you the right way. In fact, let me give you actually with an analogy. So think of that convenience store analogy where you're starting a convenience store selling candy bars and stuff. So if you're going to start a business, a convenience store business, you will not sign your name on a lease, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. In fact, you go out of business in 2 seconds. What you would do, though, is you would build the business first. If you listen to my podcast, my YouTube channel, I'm always talking about building the business first. Now, what you would do is you get the gondolas, the shelving units, all the candy bars go on, the countertops, the cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, employees, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Then once the entire business is built, then you buy the inventory, put that into your business. Same thing with real estate investing. We build the entire business first, find the experts on the ground who will do the work for us, and then our business owns the inventory. That property that we buy, that's not your business. In fact, the gurus, they'll tell you that property you buy, that is your business. No. My business owns inventory. My properties are my inventory, and that's how I'm able to scale. So what we do is we build the entire business, the right people to manage the properties, find the properties, fund, getting money for the properties, fix up the properties, all that sort of stuff. And then once they're in the business and we're already having them working for us, all we got to do is find another piece of inventory, just like another piece of candy bar or another candy bar to put in our business. Same thing. We have the experts working in the business. We buy that piece of inventory, put it into our business. That's how we're able to scale it. And a lot of people have heard the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. The premise of the book is try to make your life so you only have to work 4 hours a week. Well, my opinion, that book it's okay, but working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I don't even want to work 4 hours a month. I maybe work 30 minutes a month on all my properties because I've put the business together. I have the systems, procedures, and processes for all the people in the business to run the business itself. And then all I do is I get the money every single month, look at my property management statements, make sure everything looks good, and put it away and go back to playing with my kids. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So the systems and the processes essentially allow you to basically have this kind of like the seamlessness in terms of like building the inventory of homes that you have and so forth. How do you do with if you're in more than one geographic market though? Like obviously you need to have multiple teams, I guess, right?
100%. You're absolutely right. So I invest in Ohio, Texas, and Arizona. My students, we literally invest all over the country. We really like the Midwest right now, even after, 2020, 2021, and 2022, where the run up was up. We were buying properties all through that because we're investors. We don't buy it for market value. We buy it for less than it's worth. We capture that equity, which means we buy it for less, which means it's worth more. So we capture that amount of money in equity in that property. But we also invest for passive income too. But we love the Midwest right now. It's going really, really well. My students are buying properties all the time. And so what we do is every single city that we go to, actually, it's more like the county. Usually a lot of property managers will manage the entire county, but depending on how big county is. But let's be easier and say a city. Whichever city that we start investing in, it's like a fishing pond or a lake that we're fishing in, and we build the entire business. We basically start fishing in that pond or that lake, and then if we start feeling like, oh, let's move on, we have this business already. We already have fishing poles in this pond. Let's go to this other one, put fishing poles in there. And so that's how we build the business in every single city, getting the right people. And I'll quickly go through, because people might be thinking, well, who do we get? First, foremost is property managers. That's the absolute, if you don't have somebody to manage the property, they're going to be stealing from you, just like I did. And how much better would it be if you hire the property manager and you ask them before you buy the property if they would manage it? It'd be so much better than if you buy a property. Hey, property manager, I just bought a property, number 1 Happy Street. Will you manage it? No, I won't manage it. I'll be shot there. Well, then you're stuck. You spent all that money. How much better would it be? Hey, property manager, you already know me. We already work together. I'm looking to buy this property, number 1 Happy Street. What do you think? Oh, no, I won't buy that. Or sorry, I won't manage it because I'll get shot there. This area is better. Oh, that's great, property manager. You live in that area. Let me go ahead and have you tell me exactly what properties to buy, what areas of the city to buy. So that's the thing, is we build the entire business having experts on the ground telling us where and what and everything in our business. We just put them all together and run our own business.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And what is your philosophy on, as you're accumulating more and more properties, and let's say that through natural market appreciation, right, that the value of those properties go up. Do you advocate that at some point you make an exit and then have to now deal with the tax consequences? Or do you refinance, take equity out, then utilize that equity to buy and acquire more properties to your inventory? And how do you know when you want to do one versus the other? Is there ever a time where it's best just to sell the property, get out from underneath it? Maybe it's in a bad area, it's underperforming, I don't know, but I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on some of these things.
So I don't buy a property unless it's performing. So it has to make me $250 a month in passive income every single time. All my students, we do not buy a property unless it hits that criteria of $250. So it's always going to be performing. With that, I also invest for generational wealth. I'm blessed. I have 4 kids now. And as they're getting older, I'm realizing, my goodness, these are properties. If I sell them, they're not going to be making me money anymore. Now it'd be nice to have a good chunk of change, but how much better is if I can literally give these properties to my kids and they will be making money, and then I'll teach them how to do this as well. So I personally do not suggest and don't really sell my properties. What I love to do though is, like you said, I refinance, pull the cash out of that property, the equity. Let's say it's worth 200,000 and you're in it to over for 125,000. The value goes up. Well, let's say you can pull out 80% of the total value of that home, which is 200,000. That's 160,000 minus the 125 that you owe. What does that come out to? $35,000 that you have extra. Am I doing my math right? 160, 125. Yeah. So $35,000 that you're pulling out of that property that you could then to buy more properties. And so keep doing that over and over again, but never go below that $250 a month in passive income. I've heard other people say, oh, it's okay to go below that. In my opinion, no, that's how I feed my family. I love having that passive income come in. So in order to scale the business, we have the right people working the business. Then we save money, we get other financing. In fact, I teach my students, I've used at least 14 or 15 different ways to get funding, like say commercial loans, cash, private money, hard money lenders. I've even used signature loans from a bank. I've used commercial loans, portfolio loans, bundle loans. I've even used a credit card to buy properties because I knew my business. Now that's an advanced strategy to use a credit card, but I knew my business. I knew that if I buy this candy bar for 50 cents and it cost me 25 cents to borrow that money, that I'm still making $1 or 25 cents because I could sell it for $1. Same exact thing. If you build the business, then you have the experts run on the ground working for you. In every single city that we work in, we have the right people doing all the business for us.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you're using debt in the correct way. Like, there's some financial gurus out there that will advocate that you should never be in debt, pay off your home, blah, 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 blah. And, maybe for someone who perhaps is undisciplined and basically, can't control, their spending habits and so forth, maybe that is the right tactic to take. But, at the end of the day, though, for someone who is disciplined and can manage their finances and don't run with credit card bills, then they're utilizing debt in the correct way and utilizing leverage in the correct way, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I believe about 75 to 80% of the population, that, I guess, quote unquote, wisdom or that insight to not, pay off your home, have no debt, for 80% of the population, totally great. They need that. In fact, that's why there's so much debt is in general, credit card debt and everything like that. But not your audience. Your audience is, they're the 20%. They're like with us, that we see that there's more out there, number one. But number two, we have the self-control to not go the wrong way and get into debt where we're actually losing money. I love how Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says, so good debt or actual debt that's good for you puts money in your pocket. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket. Like my home that I live in, I'm blessed that it's now free and clear. My wife, that's one stipulation. She said, if you're going to quit your job, make sure a house is paid off. I'm like, oh, but that's money that I could use to buy more property. She said, I don't care. Make sure the house is paid off because I need to be taken care of. I'm like, okay, honey, I'll do that. But that's a good thing is now I have equity. I got a home equity line of credit on this property that I can dip into to buy another property, refinance that property, pull that cash back out, pay off that home equity line of credit. In fact, let me give you one quick little story. So I have a student, many students, actually hundreds of students now, but I have one student I think in particular. I interviewed him on my podcast. So he's in Sacramento. He's a pastor. Pastors don't make very much money. The only thing that he did have was he bought a house like, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. He had equity in it. He knew that he wanted to have a retirement, we want to have properties so that he could have a retirement. He still loves working for the church. What he did was I worked with him. We got a home equity line of credit on his house. So he didn't have any savings of his own, but a home equity line of credit. He took that home equity line of credit, bought a house. I want to say it was Georgia, maybe Columbia, Georgia. I can't remember exactly, but he bought it in Georgia and he used the cash from his home, his personal home, bought that property. And then, so another thing, we also negotiated the price lower. I think they were asking like 125. We bought it for like $75,000, which was great. Then he put about $25,000 to fix it up. So he's into it to about 100,000. Now it's worth like $200,000. He refinanced, pulled that cash back out, paid off his home equity line of credit. And now he has this home that's making him money, a minimum of $250 a month without working. And with that, he has no money of his own in the deal. He paid off his home equity line of credit. Now he's doing it all over again. Just keep doing it and recycling over and over again. So there's so many ways to do this real estate investing. There are ways to do it wrong for sure. But if you do it right, if you build the business, make sure you got your expenses accounted for and you're making profit, $250 is my suggestion, you're going to do really, really well in this business because we've taken out as much risk as possible, just like any business would.
Yeah, well said. And I think probably another thing that I want you to kind of maybe get into a little bit too is the fact that this is passive income. So there are tax benefits as well too that come with that. So when you talk about $250 a month of passive income, it's actually more than that when you think about the tax benefit that you're getting when you utilize passive losses as well. So I'd love to kind of maybe if you could get into that as well.
Totally. So I want to talk about taxes, but I'm going to talk about something also that's even more valuable than money. So first, taxes, 100%. If you have not bought a house that is an investment property and have not experienced your accountant come back to you say, hey, you have depreciation. Depreciation is amazing. It's like a fake expense that the government put together for themselves. We can utilize this tax code. But if you're making money, that depreciation makes it look like you're making less to the IRS. So you're paying less in taxes. Also, it's a business. So every expense, like if you fly to go visit properties, you might so happen to be on a vacation at the same time, but you're looking at properties, part of that's an expense. So all these tax breaks are fantastic. But here's what I want everybody to realize too. With doing something like this, becoming financially independent, making more money is fantastic. Saving money on your taxes is fantastic. But there's one commodity in everybody that everybody experiences or has that we only spend, and that's time. You can never earn more. You can never make more. You can never get more. You're having time. Now, I quit my job when I was 37 years old. Everybody realized, everybody listening, you need to realize that, like I said, nobody can pay you what you're worth, but your time is worth so much more than that. Let's say you're making $25 an hour, $20. Your time is worth so much more than that. And so imagine quitting your job, becoming successful and employed, and getting 40 plus hours of your life back to be with your family, serve the community, hang out with other people, whatever it might be, take up that hobby. But at the same time, this is what I do. I love passive income. I now build businesses on top of my real estate investing. My real estate investing is just one business. I have 4 businesses total that are making me money in the passive income way. Now, the passive income with real estate, completely passive. My properties work for me, which is great. Now I create other businesses that make me money in passive income, but I hire other people to do that work, which is passive for me. I'm giving them a great job. I'll give you an example. So my conference, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference that I put on, basically I've taught so many people for so long now. I've got hundreds of students, and I've met so many friends that are experts that have podcasts and coaching and stuff, that I created a conference. So this year we have 40, and by the time this release, I'm pretty sure it's right about the time the conference is. But anyways, we have 40 expert speakers teaching. We have hundreds of people coming and sponsors that are sponsoring the conference. But my time is now building a company that I own, that I will literally give to my kids. And my time is so much more valuable than anybody could ever pay me. That's another company that I'm creating in my Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. I also have Master Passive Income, which I have my podcast. I have my YouTube channel. I monetize those. Like if anybody comes on those, like the ads and stuff, they pay me to be on that show, coaching and courses. And so now I devote my time to building businesses that serve people, because I found the more people that I serve, either helping them to invest in real estate, or giving them a good place to live, or, like in my properties, or having a conference that they can come to and meet other people and get better at investing. If I serve people, it comes back to me so much more. In fact, not just the money. Money's fine, but it's the gratitude, the appreciation that I get, and the fulfillment of them doing that makes me more fulfilled the more I help other people. So all the above, it's the time in your life. Realize that we're all going to die. 100% of the people die. But if you realize that time is so much more valuable, then you work hard to get that time back. And then now the rest of your life, hopefully you're financially free, so you don't have to worry about wasting your life on somebody else's business.
Oh, well said. Beautifully said, in fact. And that's part of the theme. One of the themes of this show is purpose-driven wealth, right? Is that, everyone has a purpose for building their own wealth, whether it be donating time to your community, to your family, being more involved in your church, or whatever it happens to be, whatever organization you may be a part of, or that, that resonates with you. And so you're right. Time is the most valuable resource that we all have. And I always like to kind of remind myself from time to time, or I think of the analogy I should say is, I heard somebody say one time, if someone told you only had 1 year to live, but gave you the opportunity to maybe extend that to another year, another 5 years, how much would you pay? I think anyone would just say anything that they had in their bank, they would exhaust, would they not? And so, but
I'll add one. Yeah, I'll
Yes,
add
go ahead,
quickly.
please.
And I definitely want you to finish your thought. Quickly add, I would pay all the money that I have for one more day with my mom, who passed away, like let's say 7 years ago. I'd literally give all that for one more day just to be with my mom. So 100% with you.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you think of it in those terms, you're like, wow, time is so valuable, and so I really appreciate you mentioning that and getting into that as well too, about the value of what we're ultimately doing. And sometimes you get caught up in the rat race or the job, right? And then you kind of lose sight of all these other things that are really more important and really that really drive us at the end of the day. And we just lose sight of it because we get so busy.
We sure do. And that's what happens. Life gets in the way. Like for me, and I was blessed that it happened at a younger age, meaning like 26 years old or 27 years old or so, that I realized, oh my goodness, like this is, there's so much more to life than working for somebody else for 40 plus years. Hopefully everybody listening will, wherever you are now. In fact, one quote I absolutely love is, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. The next best time is literally today. And so I don't want somebody listening to this. So if you're listening to this and let's say 20 years from now, you're thinking, man, I was listening to Mo's podcast, the Purpose Driven Wealth podcast, and I heard about investing, or I heard about just changing my life on his podcast. I wish I would have done something. You don't want to be in that boat. You want to be in the boat that says, I'm so glad I listened 20 years ago and I heard that there's other ways to make money, become financially free, and I took advantage of it. That's what you want. So plant that tree today, because people are asking me right now, well, is now the best time to invest in real estate, or like, should I wait? And I said, I always tell everybody, literally now is the best time. There are better deals than others. Don't get me wrong. Like, you don't just buy anything. You got to do it right. Because if you're going to build a business, you're not going to buy a candy bar for $2, but sell it for $1. You're going to do it right. And there are people that, like, I would love to show anybody how to do this. And with that, right now is the best time to do it, because you don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and then wait. And when you do that over time, like, my properties are making me so, like, double and triple how much I made on them from when I started buying them in 2006. Now I'm making so much more money. And we think about inflation. Everybody's thinking about inflation right now. Everything's so expensive, but my rents go up with inflation. So my dollar, like how much I could spend, is tied to like, inflation doesn't really hurt me. It doesn't, I wouldn't say it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't affect me like it does other people, because my rents go up as the inflation goes up. Like your job, they're not going to quickly go up. Like mine just quickly goes up. Anyways, all that to say, because my rents keep going up, I am protected from inflation. So all the above, in my opinion, real estate investing gives me financial freedom, gives me peace of mind, gives me my time back, 40 plus hours of my life back. Now I'm also be able to protect and take care of my family. So if everybody's thinking about planting that tree today, whatever it is, let's say you want to come, start your own business, you want to start investing in real estate, whatever it might be, plant that tree today, and then don't let anything stop you. I let things stop me. Life got in the way, but then I had that wake up call of getting laid off. And then now, no, there's no stopping me. Now I'll never need another job again. And so hopefully I would love to see that for the rest of your audience.
Yeah, and that's I think a good segue into the next thing I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on. There's been this growing, let's say, bearish narrative out there, that housing is dead, that mortgage rates have been skyrocketing, decreasing affordability by people, a growing segment of the population, right? They can't afford to buy a home. And then I also read a recent article about the sentiment of home builders. Stock prices have pummeled quite a bit over the last 6-12 months or even more. And so, like, home builders are getting there's in the marketplace, and in terms of the stock prices of home builders, there's a lot of bearish sentiment. And that's being pushed out there in the mainstream and in the mainstream narrative, let's say, which you always got to be kind of like critical about, right? Because there's usually more to it, and there's a lot more detail. I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts when you kind of hear this kind of like bearish sentiment, when along the lines of like housing is dead.
So I will tell you, it is music to my ears. I am so excited that the pundits or economy and news and people are saying, oh my goodness, the sky is falling on real estate. That's the time I make the most money. In fact, Warren Buffett says, when there's blood in the streets, I think this is quoted to him, when there's blood in the streets, that's when you need to be buying. And so when there's hard times, sadly, other people will be hurt. But if you're ready, that's the best time. In fact, I think we're entering the best time ever to invest in real estate, better than 2010, which was really good. I think it's going to be even better that with just so many bad things going on in the world, from inflation to interest rates to banks going under, crypto, like all this stuff is going on, but it's going to be the best time ever. And here's the thing. I am so excited because I've been waiting for this. Now I've been buying, my students have been buying, but with deals that come up. Now everything's going to be like pennies on the dollar, in my opinion, the next couple of years. So definitely right now you can see this turmoil coming, and you see home buyers and all that sort of stuff. Like they're being pulled out of the market because the interest rates are higher. But here's what I'm seeing. If you want to capitalize, if you want to make money on the recession, which we're already in, which is going to get worse, it'll eventually, seems like it'll be a depression. You need to be ready to invest now. You need to be ready to buy real estate now. And so here's what I like. I like the example of when in 2006, when everything was going up, I started investing. I had no clue what I was doing. Only thing I did was I invested for passive income. That's the only thing that I did. And I did that right. Everybody else, like most people that went invested for appreciation, like the gurus told them, they went bankrupt. I was looking around like, where's everybody? Well, I guess I'm still going to keep going buying properties, which was fantastic for me. Now, here's the thing about real estate investing. you need to know how to do it before you do it. Just like if you're going to build a business, if you don't know what the business is, how to build it, where to, all that sort of stuff, you're going to miss it. So think of it like surfing. So when you're surfing a wave, you need to paddle before the wave actually gets to you so you can catch the wave and ride it on in. If you do not paddle after the wave passes you because, oh, I want to catch it. You don't paddle afterwards. You paddle before. Same thing with real estate investing and capitalizing on anything. Let's say it's stocks and you're starting to short stocks or something like that. If you don't know what you're doing, you can get hurt. If you do know what you're doing by getting education, by listening to most podcasts week in and week out, by getting around people, going to meetups, or getting around people that already do this, that know how to do this, I'd love to help you if you want to. Actually, I have a free course I'll give out in just a second, but you need to get around the right people so that they're going to show you, hey, this is the right way to do it in the up, down, or a sideways market. And so with that, it'd be like you trying to start investing after the wave is already crashing and all the good properties are being gobbled up by me and my students, and you're trying to learn how now, and you might make some mistakes, you might get some good ones, but at the same time, how much better if you start learning now? So do you mind if I share my free course? I'll just give it to everybody.
Yeah, free. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll give my course. I just love giving this out because I just want to, like I said, I want to serve people. So I'll give you this course. Text the word rental, RENTAL, to 33777. Rental to 33777. My course will show you literally like how to find an area of the country to invest anywhere in the country, how to build the business, how to scale your business to quit your job. And so you could even go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word, masterpassiveincome.com/free course, or text the word rental to 33777. I've had people just listen to my podcast, become investors because it's usually a solo show, just me giving this out. I've had people just get my free course, become investors just by utilizing a free course. Now, if they want coaching, if they want me to hold their hands, then you come to me and, I'll help you out there too. But yeah, you want to start moving now before the wave comes. Start paddling now, getting ready now, experience, money, business built, all that sort of stuff, so that when it comes, you're going to be able to capitalize on everything.
And thank you for sharing that. And just to add one data point for the listeners out there who may not know this, that essentially there's a national shortage of millions of housing units. So when you hear that, housing is dead and mortgage rates are this and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, just keep in mind the main data point out there, and actually there's multiple, but the one that I probably want, it's easier for most people to probably resonate with, is we are millions of housing units of national shortage right now. So take that however way you want. The build to rent space, for example, has been growing tremendously over the last few years. Institutional investors have been gobbling up these types of properties because they know that there's a need for it. And a lot of families, a lot of young families want to have homes. They want to have rental property. They can't afford to buy, but they can only rent. And so the build to rent space is growing quite a bit too. And I think that just further adds to owning rental properties, because it just kind of shows that, there are drivers out there for the fact that people won't be able to buy for some time, or they will be able to buy much later in life than they were in previous generations. So just some things for people to keep in mind.
Absolutely. I'm only seeing good things coming. Like I'm so excited. In fact, every time on my podcast, I'm saying, you guys get ready. This is the best time. I've been saying this for a little while now, at least probably maybe 2 years. Like once COVID happened, I was like, oh, it's coming, and it will get here. So yes, absolutely. It's going to be the best time ever to invest in real estate.
Yeah. Dustin, before we wrap this up, I'd like you to kind of maybe talk a little bit about your book. Well, actually, you've got several books, but what motivated you to write your first book?
Man, so that's a fun question. So when I was working my job, buying properties, I eventually, when I got closer to quitting my job, I started telling people, oh, I'm going to be able to quit. I invest in real estate. So the question always came from coworkers even, and friends, and, friends from church and everybody. Well, how are you doing that? And then the question always comes, well, can you show me? I'm like, well, sure, I guess I can. And I would teach people, and I realized two things. Number one, I really enjoy teaching it. Like, it's fun. Hopefully kind of my energeticness comes out. Like, it's so much fun teaching this stuff because I see people's lives change. The second thing was, it took so long teaching people one-on-one. It was just so much work. And then I knew that I realized they were all the same questions. Every single one had the same questions. So I said, let me just write a book. I just thought to myself, I'm going to write a book and just give that out to everybody. I still give it out. Like if you go to my site, masterpassiveincome.com, you'll see, I think some like the free things that I have at the top. you'll find I literally give away my book for free. You just pay for shipping, and then I'll give it to you for free. But I would give that out to everybody and said, these will answer your first questions. The beginner questions, they're good questions, but if you're serious, after you finish that, number one, you have to be serious enough to finish it. Number two, you have to be serious enough to get through with it and then talk to me. But that's what it got me to write my first book. And with that book, it's not a very creative title, straightforward to the point, how to create your job with rental properties.
Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that. And how can people find out more about you?
Absolutely. So you could definitely check out my podcast. It's usually a solo show. You go, it's Master Passive Income. Just look up Master Passive Income. Actually, I've been blessed that it's been going so well now. If you search real estate investing in iTunes or Spotify, usually I'm like number one or number two, which is great. So check out my podcast, get my free course, text the word rental to 33777. You can also find me on YouTube, look Master Passive Income there as well. I even like my Instagram account. If you find me on Instagram, the Dustin Heiner, so THE Dustin Heiner, and Mo, I'm not that arrogant. It's the only handle I could come up with. So the Dustin Heiner, reach out to me on there. I love chatting with people, love hanging out on there. Also, my conference, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, is an annual conference. Every single year we go between East, West, and Central, like the locations. So check out the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. If you use the promo code podcast, and I'll have this be perpetually, because every time you come, I don't know when you're going to listen to Mo's podcast, but if you use the promo code podcast, if you go to rubcon.com, and I know Mo will put these links in the description, REWBCON.com, and you use the promo code podcast, I'll give you 10% off your ticket. I just want to see so many people invest in real estate, because in the end, the more people that own properties, the better everything gets, because we don't have these huge corporations that are skyrocketing the rates, and it just makes everybody's lives better. So yeah, but I really appreciate you having me on the show, Mo.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you for coming on to the show today. You provided an amazing amount of value to the audience.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And that's all for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And like Dustin mentioned, we are going to include all the links to all the resources that Dustin mentioned. We'll have those all in the show notes when this episode goes live. Thank you again, Dustin, for coming on, and thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for tuning into this week's show. If you are interested in learning how alternative investments can help you build purpose-driven wealth, sign up on the High Rise Capital website to receive our monthly newsletter and free investor ebook. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Thank you for listening to Purpose Driven Wealth, the podcast for empowered investors.